by the historic Saugeen métis, so we'll allow a little bit of time for the shifting of chairs. Ms. MacArthur, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Swanson and members of the board. President Archie Indu sends his regrets for being unable to come today. My name is Patsy MacArthur, and I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the historic Saugeen Métis. Our local Métis community asserts credible Section 35 Aboriginal rights in the Métis Saugeen traditional territory and appreciates this opportunity to respond to Information Request 12-510 with respect to the direction provided by the Joint Review Panel. Here on behalf of HSM, our senior ecologist, Dr. Gordon Wishart, SLR Consulting Canada Limited, and HSM Coordinator of Lands, Resources and Consultation, Mr. George Govier. Mr. Govier's previous experience with the environmental assessment process includes 13 years as Executive Director of the Northwest Territory, Mackenzie Valley Sawtooth Land and Water Board. Now I will turn it over to Dr. Wishart.
Gordon Wishart for the record. We appreciate the opportunity for Saugeen Métis to present our review of OPG's response to Information Request 12-510. A colleague and I prepared the review and this presentation comments in consultation with the historic Saugeen Métis. We will address 4 subject matters from the information response. These include the terrestrial environment, hydrology, water quality, and the aquatic environment. The presentation will include or comprise 2 parts. The first part will be the basis of our review, and then the second part will be the summary of our findings. So the basis of our review, this is found in the main direction that's given in the information request from the joint panel to Ontario Power Generation. And to us, it seemed to focus on 2 issues. One was to provide a narrative of how residual effects on the environment were determined, and the second was to provide and characterize implications of the effects determination. We focus on 3 points in our evaluation of the narrative review. The first one, the focus was to provide a narrative to avoid arbitrary categories for classification of effects. Here we were examining the use of context-sensitive information. In other words, the information presented, could it be understood in relative terms in terms of magnitude, extent, duration, frequency, irreversibility of effects, etc. And then the second point under this main point was, are these findings consistent with what would be found in the literature? So are the conclusions supported in the literature? The second point refers to precision and accuracy. Here we were looking at characterization of pre- and post-impact effects. We were looking for an account of measurement error, and also addressing the question, are changes detectable using standard monitoring methods? The third focus of our review is with respect to the level of confidence with respect to the precautionary principle. And so here we were looking for potential examples of the use of a planning hierarchy, such as efforts to avoid, mitigate, and offset effects. And then monitoring and adaptive management, characterization of predictions, the consequences if the anticipated effects were wrong, and how would contingencies be managed. Just to summarize the basis of our review, we feel that the intent of the direction was to increase the defensibility or repeatability of the evaluation process, and, for example, to allow the following question to be answered. Given the same information, would an independent investigator arrive at similar conclusions? Now, part 2 of our presentation is a summary of the findings from the historic Saugeen Métis review of the OPG response to the information request. So regarding the terrestrial environment, OPG has justified the independent loss of the eastern white cedar forest on the basis that it is not large enough to compromise sustainability of the local population, that the attributes are not unique, nor are other species dependent upon it, and that connectivity will not be disrupted. What is of concern to the interests of the historic Métis is the issue of cumulative effects to landscape connectivity and incremental habitat loss. It would be in the interest of the historic Saugeen Métis to ensure that fencing is installed to prevent accidental incursions into the forest to be conserved, to identify opportunities to retain tree cover or rehabilitate suitable habitat prior to or in conjunction with the proposed removals. Recommended precautionary approaches to minimize the effects of the removal of forest cover include increasing the patch size of key woodlands and invasive plant species control to improve biodiversity that would enhance the Huron Fringe Deer Yard. Historic Saugeen Métis is interested in participating in the design and implementation of habitat enhancements. Regarding hydrology, OPG justified the alteration of flow because the anticipated change is within measurement error using standard techniques to estimate flow. In other words, the anticipated alteration would be low. In support of a precautionary approach, OPG commits to follow-up monitoring to confirm predictions and to redesign drainage features if adverse effects are identified. Here again, the historic Saugeen Métis is interested in receiving monitoring reports. Regarding water quality, OPG identified no residual effects, adverse effects to surface water quality. This determination of significance is based on two concepts. One is a standards-based approach based on guidelines, and the other is more ecological and it's habitat protection related. So things such as toxicity testing. Precautionary principle is supported through the design of the surface water management system that provides the opportunity to hold and test water prior to discharge. So this allows the implementation of tests to standards as well as toxicity testing for the protection of habitat. Here also, the historic Saugeen Métis are interested in receiving monitoring reports. Finally, regarding the aquatic environment, rationale for the determination of significant adverse effects relate to the long-term sustainability of species and populations and to habitat functions that support species of interest. Ontario Power Generation justified the removal of habitat based on its small amount, marginal quality, and that available habitat is found elsewhere in the study area. In support of the precautionary principle, the OPG response to the information request states that rehabilitation of the DGR may include both active and passive naturalization of the project area to provide additional suitable habitat, similar to that currently provided on the site. Historic Saugeen Métis are interested in sustainable aquatic habitat and maintaining connectivity among habitat components. Here also, the historic Saugeen Métis looks forward to participation in future habitat rehabilitation plans and receiving monitoring reports. Our overall conclusions based on our review are as follows. The historic Saugeen Métis acknowledges that Ontario Power Hydro Generation's response to the information request provides reasoned arguments in the narrative to explain the significance of the residual effects for the project components discussed above. Historic Saugeen Métis acknowledges that Ontario Power Generation's response improves the defensibility and repeatability of the findings. And finally, Historic Saugeen Métis looks forward to ongoing communication with Ontario Power Generation on monitoring results and participation in discussions on habitat sustainability and rehabilitation.
Thank you.